For another song number, char. To the UP Institute of Chemistry, the UP Chemical Society, the UP Association of Chemistry Majors and Enthusiasts, and the UP Chemistry Alumni Foundation for being generous enough to grace us with this monumental event. Distinguished guests, esteemed and invaluable professors, special mention to my thesis advisor, beloved instructors, and I could only imagine, just the proudest parents in the world. And of course, to my dearest, beloved, my strong graduates. Isang mapagpalaya at malulhating umaga sa inyong lahat. So, I made this speech as best a chemistry major knows how. Crammed in 2 nights from 2 functioning brain cells. And in Cambria font. You can look at it after. Has it sunk in yet? It doesn't seem too far away when we actually wore name tags in the first day of college. First of all, let me just say how immensely proud I am of each and every one of this year's chemistry graduates. For this speech, I'd just like to delve on what it really means to be one. The first thing we knew was we lectured on the history of atomic structure on our literal first day of chemistry classes, right after we were asked our names. Walang syllabus week, sabat agad sa laban. From then on, I guess that's the only thing we knew how to do, to fight. Against math professors who assumed everyone was a math Olympiad participant in high school, running for fitness classes, aka chemistry lab classes, with auctions for extra glasswares every end of semester, because we misplaced most of it during classes. Bio 11, need I expound? 7 a.m. slumber parties, classes. And of course, the grueling chemistry lecture classes. You draw reaction mechanisms and hope the arrows end somewhere. Constantly being on the verge of tears, reading the same paragraph from Hausdorff or Atkins. No offense, but they're just not the best writers, aren't they? Garrett the best. And who could forget that time we just had to have a damn Google Docs for the last exam of our last major subject, spanning 20 academic journals. It's so sad Dr. Villaraza isn't here today. I remember just sulking in front of my laptop, reading everybody else's answers to sample questions. Fortunately, there was this little entertaining thread below, and I could fondly remember someone writing along the lines of, "Guys, pwede in English?" And I just laughed manically, amid a mental breakdown. Good times, right? Near the end of that tunnel was something that's as bad as how everybody said it would be. As if you weren't as spent and burnt out enough as you possibly could be, there's your undergraduate thesis waiting for you to spend the rest of your degree with. I think every graduate in this room can agree that those were among the longest days of your undergraduate years. Painstaking hours under the sticky and humid atmosphere of the Philippines, donning such appropriate outfits. A lab gown, goggles with moist, completely blocking your sight, a face mask, and gloves. Tamang lawa ng pawis lang. In addition to that, come the dilemmas. Is the setup correct? Did I add the right amount of reagent? Oh my God, di nakasaksak! 3 drops ba yun? And the literal worst, but the most frequent, shems, uulitin ko na naman. With procedures that may take more than 1 week or more. The research building you used to be so excited about became the stuff of your nightmares. I freshly remember just thinking of my IR spectrum at night, trying to point at random spaces, trying to assign the peaks. And internally, I was just really sad about my life. These experiences were just etched in your soul, just as much as the putrid smell of the solvent you used perpetually. In the end, after all the countless introductions, methodologies we wrote, the Sci-Hub references, and the discussions on why we had 1000% yields and R-squareds of 0.00081s, here we are at the conclusion of everything. Now, I don't know what specific kinds of nights you went through to get here, but I'm quite certain that there was always some kind of profound darkness in one form of another. And despite all of which, sa aking mga precious and strong momshies at baby boys, we made it. And for this, please give yourselves Batch 2019 a thunderous round of applause. But it just doesn't stop there, does it? I guess another kind of darkness creeps in and drops the most bombing question of all. What now? And you just really don't know the answer to that. I know after this weekend, we would still wake in the same daunting world, one that's fundamentally broken and full of contradictions. After all, we are in a world with institutions that preach love as the universal theme of humanity, and yet confine its definitions to a certain demographic and even legislate it. We are in a world that uses a misguided and severely outdated form of the science of sexuality to justify bigotry, hatred, and even misogyny, going as far as saying something is unnatural despite existing significantly in nature. The same people, when asked, funny, don't even know what genes are and how the central dogma works, or generally don't even care about science in its entirety. And sadly, these people comprise the majority. We are in a world with, well, this government. Need I say more? And to top it off, we are in a world that's essentially dying. Bleached coral ecosystems, rising sea levels, and threatened species in continued decline. And at this point, nobody thinks we can just metal straw this problem away. And yet we are still in a world that still perceives science as a luxury, instead of an essential component to solving the world's problems. All of us, graduates, are expected to live in that world, and the uncertainty that comes with it is just so daunting and frustrating. There is a constant stream of doubt and a daily haggling with uncertainties that are bound to ensue. But wait a minute, doesn't that sound oddly familiar? That just sounds like the past 4 years you were asking yourself kung tama ba na nandito ako at kung kaya ko ito, doesn't it? All the darkness, and in spite of them, all of us being here today, this ought to drive a crucial message within us. Through every endeavor in our major, we were forced to doubt everything, including ourselves. And that seemed destroying at first. But sooner or later, we had no choice but to finally learn to live with it, simply let it be, and to still persevere despite it, in hopes of finally overcoming it. And overcome, we all did thus far. And these are the same stories from our peers, from those in more senior positions, and even from our pioneers. Copernicus proceeded with the heliocentric model despite the pressures from the church. Curie was victorious amid blatant misogyny. Mundo introduced jaundice relieving devices, despite being the only female Harvard graduate. And Turing helped to stop the world's Second World War, despite being tagged as indecent for being gay. And so many others from underrepresented sectors. It now becomes apparent that maybe what it means to be a scientist, what it means to be a chemistry major, is not always to be calculating and to be perfect, but more than anything, it is to be comfortable enough in the face of doubt and in the threat of failure. And that these feelings shouldn't have to mean that we are any less worthy of the spaces we occupy. I guess at the end of the day, we're just like one of the central concepts of all of chemistry, the electron. You know this from the course and because of the ongoing board exam reviews. An electron is actually just this cloud of fuzzy uncertainty occupying most of the volume of matter. Basically saying that the fundamental unit of everything is actually comprised of nothing solid, but something uncertain. It's something that's so difficult to grasp, you know, Chem 156. But it doesn't stop the electron from existing, from occupying space, from creating bonds, from allowing the reality we see to exist as the unfathomable but beautiful complexity that it is. The uncertainty doesn't stop the electron from doing all the amazing things it does. And most of all, it doesn't stop it from mattering. And maybe in the same way, it shouldn't stop us as well. At this point, let me take this opportunity to try and represent everyone's gratitude to groups of people that helped us through. To our professors for their difficult exams, invaluable knowledge and wisdom. To our lab instructors for their constant assurance and companionship, for making us feel like we're not alone in this world, for allowing us to showcase our talents in the practical exams, and of course for the pizzas during semesters. To our thesis advisors for their patience with our data and in revising our graphs. God knows what that was like. For the guidance they selflessly offered this next generation of scientists. Of course, to our kuyas and ates in our research laboratories for simply being the pinnacle of support during among the most crucial parts of our chem major lives, our undergraduate thesis. And having amazing self-restraints and still allowing us to work in the lab despite several clumsiness. To our closest and most treasured companions who chose to stay and become a home for us, for tolerating our karupukans and easing our burdens in the stillness that is university. To the music albums that help us strive through every broken-hearted night. To our parents for being with us, perhaps literally every step of the way. At syempre sa pamantasang hirap, sa pagbuho at muling pagbuo. Wala hanggang pasasalamat at para sa inyo ang lahat ng ito. As in any conclusion we have written as chem majors, I guess I can end this speech with how I really wanted everything to be made sense of. Perhaps the true gifts of science to its graduates aren't about brilliance and about knowledge at all. Maybe it ought to be about humility and resilience. Thus, the answer to what it means to be a chemistry major is to be molded to think that the world is too incomprehensibly complex, and that it is natural to be in this perpetual state of doubt. After all, doubts lead to questions, and questions lead to answers. Therefore, a scientist is an enemy to those who think they know the world enough and have the right to place people in categories and stereotypes because he or she doubts the prejudice of society. Thus, also, a scientist is also a person brave enough to recognize the need for change. And as such, it is an imperative that he or she is a proponent of it and resists anything that hampers it. It would seem impossible, that's for sure. Because people, even those we least expect, will continuously and painfully question and challenge us. And maybe are already doing so at the moment. They will question who we are or who we have become, like we've always been these innocent 15 years old they knew. They will question what we represent and what we fight for, as if the world we live in isn't enough impetus to fight. And these are meant to destroy us. But after all that ranting about the 4 years of disproportionate suffering and darkness, I guess I end up saying that as chemistry graduates, we are ultimately primed for that kind of world exactly because of those years. We are fighters. We struggle, we thrive, and we overcome. Today is hard proof of that. That's what it means to be a chemistry major. As such, Batch 2019, you will always inspire a spark of hope in me for the future, despite the world we live in. Continue to doubt, to wonder, to learn, and to challenge the status quo. And maybe at the end of it, we will find a better world waiting for us. Maybe a future where the next generation fears the world less than we once did. I'll definitely miss the banter in the hallways, the cramming in the library, the constant references to Vines, Yeet, the Sana Alls, the Gusto Ko Na Mamatay, the Twitter breakdowns, the panicking crowd minutes before exams, and just about every single thing about you. Let me end this speech with an appropriate quote from one of my favorite movies, The Last Word 2017. Fall on your face. Fail. Fail spectacularly. Because when you fail, you learn. When you fail, you live. And with that, just like in our experiments, let's take the world one failure at a time. until we fail enough, we actually know how to succeed. Padayon, Batch 2019. Serve the people. At muli, isang mapagpalayang umaga sa inyong lahat.